All right, we're live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Captain Bazzotti with the Tacoma Park Police Department, and thank you for being here tonight. It's truly an honor to host this summit and welcome each of you. Members of our law enforcement community, city leaders, and most importantly, our residents. We're joined tonight by an impressive group of chiefs and public safety leaders from across our region, each representing agencies committed to transparency, collaboration, and the safety for all of our communities. Tonight is more about than sharing data. It's about building understanding. This summit is designed to address current crime trends we're all seeing, talk openly about the challenges we face, and explore how we can work more effectively across city and county lines. Crime doesn't respect borders, and neither should our strategies. Our strengths lie in how well we collaborate. I'll now introduce our Chief of Tacoma Park, Chief Antonio Duvall.
Well, good evening. I'm Tony Duvall. I'm the Chief of Police here in the city of Tacoma Park, and I welcome you to this summit. As Captain Mazzotti said, it's really, really important for you all to understand how this collaboration works. I think you all don't understand this. You're very fortunate to have the professional agencies that work well together to address crime in this region. So we're going to be discussing that this evening. I'd like to introduce a few of my staff members. We have several officers in the audience. We also have several command staff, our crime analysts, as well as our chaplain. So we're looking forward to the dialogue, and I'll turn it over to Chief Yamada from Montgomery County.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Yamada. I'm the Chief of Police with Montgomery County. Our 3rd district and our 2nd district, sort of our lower parts of our county out of our 6, generally work more closely with Tacoma Park than our other 4 districts, which are up county. Sometimes Wheaton as well, which is our 4th district. But tonight I have with me Commander Jason Kokinas from our 3rd district and our Chief of Patrol Services, Darren Frank.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Daryl McSwain, serve as the Police Chief of the Montgomery County Division of Park Police. Had the pleasure of once serving with the County Police. So for some of you, I may know you from that walk of life, if you will. Of course, the Park Police itself has parks all over the county itself, to include Tacoma Park as well as about 270 miles of trail, and again, about 400 plus parks just in Montgomery Parks alone. So we are certainly very intimate with Tacoma Park, and certainly enjoy a good working relationship with the men and women who serve this agency in the community.
All right, so good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Jermaine Haywood, and I currently represent the Prince George's County Park Police. So if you guys are not aware, we have a bi-county agency of Montgomery County and Prince George's County. So I'm the Chief of Prince George's County. And with me, I have, from our patrol services, Assistant Chief Yasmin Brown in the crowd, and then also from Investigative Services, Lieutenant Bob Jones. And so we do share some jurisdictional issues and concerns as it relates specifically to our trails. So we're just here to openly share any issues or concerns that we can address and answer questions from the staff and the community. All right, so thank you for having us.
Good evening. My name is Captain Brian Smith of the Maryland State Police. I oversee the Washington Metro Troop, which encompasses the Rockville Barrack within Montgomery County and the 2 barracks within Prince George's County, one in College Park and one in Forestville. I'm here to answer any questions. Great partnerships with the allied agencies here. Thank you for having us.
Good evening, everyone. I am Deputy Chief James McCrary here with the Prince George's County Police Department, here on behalf of Chief Malik Aziz, who was unable to attend, but he sends his condolences. I am in charge of the 8 patrol divisions that we have here in Prince George's County. Division 1 being the most important here to the community in College Park. It encompasses here to about Langley Park, all the way over to basically Riverdale. And here on behalf of Division 1, I have Captain Nick Collins here to represent Prince George's County. So good evening. Looking forward to having a good discussion.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Jeffrey Kopp. I'm the Assistant Chief of Police for Patrol Services North in Washington, D.C. I oversee the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th police districts, which border Montgomery County and Prince George's County on our northern and eastern borders. Looking forward to the conversation we're going to have tonight and expanding upon our partnerships that we have with the agencies as we go along. Thank you.
Each agency here brings unique expertise and perspective. When we come together like this, sharing intelligence, aligning resources, and building relationships, we all benefit. Most importantly, the public benefits. This summit is not a one-off event. It's a step towards more unified and proactive policing strategies. We're going to use this time to be candid, solution-focused, and forward-thinking. Let's talk about what's working and what needs to improve, and let's leave here with a stronger sense of regional unity and renewed commitment to action. With that, we'll begin with an overview of current crime trends, with each department sharing a snapshot of what they're seeing in their communities. From there, we'll dive into discussion, share challenges, collaborative opportunities, and of course, your questions. So I'll turn it over to Chief Duvall.
Thank you, Captain Mazzotti. I think what you're going to see from all of us is a constant theme about challenges and investigations and things we face. But I'm just going to give a brief overview of kind of the first quarter stats here in the city of Tacoma Park. All right, my clicker's not working. City TV, can you navigate the center button? All right, still not working. Can you all navigate that from there? I'll just say next slide when we get to that point. It worked when we were going through it during the. There we go. All right. Thank you very much. So we're pleased to announce that we've had about a 57% decrease in Part 1 crimes when compared to last first quarter. And comparatively for incidents, Part 1 incidents, we had about 391 Part 1 crimes in 2024 in the city of Tacoma Park during the first quarter, and we've had 170 in 2025. And you can see the comparisons on the chart to the right. We didn't have any homicides in the first quarter of 2024, nor we've had any in 2025. The rapes are the same, and you can look through the percentages. The biggest percentages for us are larcenies. We had a one real problem location in the city that accounted for a lot of thefts, the Walgreens in Langley Park. They have since hired armed security, and since they've done that, we've had almost zero occurrences at that location. So, you know, as we look through the percentages with Tacoma Park, we're a smaller jurisdiction, so don't necessarily look at the percentages, more look at the numbers. But we just wanted to give you a snapshot of what occurred in the first quarter. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this just gives you a kind of percentage and overview of the particular incidents. And you're talking about the first quarter. So the robberies were reduced from 9 to 7, burglaries from 28 to 13, larcenies 231 to 56, theft from autos from 94 to 70, auto thefts from 25 to 14, and you can see the arsons. Like I said, very small percentage numbers of crimes, so the percentages don't necessarily reflect as much the larger agencies where percentages may mean much more. Go to the next slide, please. If you look at the ward breakdown, for those of you who live in the city, this is to give you an example of where your particular ward is. Ward 6, which encompasses Langley Park and our main business districts, accounts for the large majority of crime in the city. That is not unexpected due to the nature of the geography of that particular ward. And we'll get into a little bit more in depth into Ward 6 and some other crime as we go into the next slide. So we can go to the next one, please. And this, like I said earlier, if you look at the ward overview, Ward 6 accounts for 37% of all the crime in the city. It's followed by Ward 3, Ward 2, and then Ward 1, and the other wards as follows. Like I said, there's a large portion of that is our commercial area at Tacoma Langley Crossroads, and that accounts for a large majority of the crime within the city. And I'll give you a graphic later on that shows kind of the cross-border crime and some of the issues that we deal with along the New Hampshire Avenue corridor, which borders our Prince George's division. Go to the next slide, please. And this is just an example of crimes that occur kind of on that New Hampshire Avenue corridor when we talk about cross-border crime. So Part 1 crimes on New Hampshire Avenue account for 29% of all Part 1 crimes in the city of Tacoma Park. That's 29% of all the significant crimes at Tacoma Park. They have the highest percentage of robberies at 71%, highest percentage of burglaries at 62%. And all of the 8 burglaries along New Hampshire Avenue were commercial with forced entry. We're seeing the same trend Prince George's is right across the border. So the same people that are committing crimes in Tacoma Park are committing them in Prince George's, are committing them in DC and Montgomery County. So we're going to talk tonight a lot about how we work together from the ground level with our patrol officers, with our intelligence, and also with investigative cross coordination. Next slide, please. All right. So as I said, I think it's very important that people understand that crimes don't have borders, and I think we're going to really stress that this evening. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Amati to give a brief kind of overview of what's going on in Montgomery County.
Yeah, so thankfully, I hope I'm not alone from my regional partners, but I've seen a significant drop, especially in all of our violent crime categories over the last 18 months. Where we are hurting still is auto theft and theft from auto. We did partner last year. We were seeing tremendous focus on our Hyundais and our Kias. We're contributing a significant amount, and we did partner with them and put on 2 different anti-theft programs within Montgomery County to help. We offered, or the dealerships offered, anti-theft upgrades to the electronics for those vehicles. It was free, and if your electronics didn't need upgraded, they even offered a vehicle steering wheel lock. Those helped drop those numbers significantly for us. We are seeing more attempts on those vehicles, but not as many of these attempts are resulting in cars actually being stolen. The other area that we're seeing an increase in, and I think this applies regionally, is shoplifting. In fact, groups of individuals acting together to commit thefts from our local businesses. I know our 2 down county commanders, Commander Dom and Commander Kukinis, have concentrated significant amount of resources in the CBD area, which bumps up against Tacoma Park, to help. They've worked in concert with the businesses down there on an educational approach and also an enforcement approach. One thing that has assisted us greatly is our DFR program, which is our Drone as First Responder program. We've expanded that to include 3 sites within Montgomery County, 1 in Silver Spring, 1 in Wheaton, 1 in Gaithersburg, and we're looking to increase that into the Germantown and down over in White Oak as well. Also going to try to get us into Bethesda depending on the budget. But those are all things our real-time intelligence center in conjunction with our DFR program has helped significantly. And what that is it incorporates a live 911 system, a camera program, and the drones all working together to do exactly what you all want, which is provide the best and quickest information to the officers responding to calls for service, and allows them to make the best decisions possible. All that has contributed significantly to our decreases in crime.
All righty. Well, we're fortunate also, very similar to the county itself, to be down essentially all of our major offenses as it relates to persons crimes, if you will, Part 1 crimes, as well as Part 2. From 23 to 24, we were down 18% in both of those categories. Year to date right now, we're down 30 and 27% respectively for Part 1 and Part 2 offenses. One of the things that we do see generally when it gets warmer are matters involving indecent exposures. We were up as it relates to 23 to 24 in that particular category. Some types of unwanted touching, if you will, and or simple assaults, many times occurring at athletic events, if you will, between patrons and others. I will say also that we realize this does not happen in a vacuum. We work with all of our colleagues up here, their respective detective sections, patrol members, et cetera, when we see different trends. We actually have members who serve on area task forces regarding drugs and also gangs. So they continue to contribute to the overall health of the entire community, and we're certainly proud of their efforts. And then also theft from autos. That is a challenge that all of us have around the entire region itself. We have seen significant decreases for us in that particular category. Again, that's detectives sharing information with each other, because oftentimes it could be just a few who really are responsible for an inordinate amount of those types of crimes. And obviously, if you find them, then eventually we do make some significant dents in those types of offenses.
So we don't have any crime. Nobody's laughing other than the folks up here. Okay. All right. So we would love to say that we don't have crime, but obviously Prince George's County, Montgomery County, the Washington metropolitan area, and it's in itself has crime. All right. So this is the reason why we're here. And I wanted to just touch on a few of the crimes, not really going into the weeds of it, because we don't have a lot of crime that typically butts up against the city of Tacoma Park. But nonetheless, with our trail systems and things like that, we do have crimes, and we do typically see the same types of crimes as the chief stated to you guys. So just a brief overview, we've had a 7% drop in crimes in Part 1 crimes, and I'll give it to you like this. So Part 1 crimes and uniform crimes are those violent crimes that we typically focus on. Not to say that any other crime in itself is not something that we focus. But those Part 1 crimes that we typically focus on are homicides, our rapes, our robberies, our assaults, our burglaries, our larcenies, and our motor vehicle thefts. So just to give you a brief overview, we had a 7% drop in Part 1 crimes in 2023. And then in 2024, we had a 10% increase. All right, so as we move through the first couple months in 2025, we've actually had a 14% increase in Prince George's County. Now, Prince George's County park system is unique in itself, where we encompass a great deal of activities. All right, so and I'll go through it, some of the responsibilities that we have. But just to share that, and I wanted to give you guys an overview of what our officers are doing in Prince George's County as it relates to the park systems. So per officer, we're averaging about 1,400 calls per year per officer. In 2024, we averaged about 1,443, and now we're up to about 1,482 as we go through the year. Our calls for service after COVID, we were averaging about 200,000 calls for service for our park systems. As we move away from COVID, we're seeing the trend already in this year where we're going to be averaging around 250,000 calls for service for our park police agencies. Some of the challenges that we're dealing with is it is getting warmer. The truancy issues are a big deal, especially on our trucks, our trail systems, where we see our juvenile youth typically hang and hide, right? So for the residents of the city of Tacoma Park, just make sure that you are paying attention. That old catchphrase, if you see something, do something or say something, it really does ring true. All right, so one of the biggest things that we typically see as a high value crime for park police in Prince George's County are thefts from autos, our larcenies, and our assaults. The other challenges that we're dealing with as our detectives are going through trying to solve crimes, one of the biggest things that we routinely deal with is when we are canvassing areas and we come across houses with video camera ring footage. Our citizens aren't doing a great job of paying the subscriptions, so they don't retain video. So that's one thing that we can ask you guys to do. If you have those video footage, please retain, so that when we are conducting cross jurisdiction investigations, we're able to retain information that's vital to our investigations. As the chief stated, there are some of the things that we're doing in terms of investigators attending monthly in-person regional investigations meetings. Many of the counties and municipalities, as well as federal agencies, partner. So we typically, as a park police agency for Prince George's County, we host and we attend interjurisdictional county meetings as it relates to investigations. Just a couple of fun facts that you guys should be aware of what we do and how we do it. Park Police is responsible for 29,000 acres in Prince George's County. 29,000 acres. If you do the math, that's 45 acres, right? Or 45 square miles. We have an airport that we're responsible for, a minor league stadium, and 13 aquatic facilities, 45 historical sites, 43 community centers is typically where we see the majority of our crimes, all right? And there's a ton of other fun facts, and we have some information to pass out to folks upon completion of this. But I wanted to share that just so you guys have that. And then we're looking forward to any questions that you may have for us. Thank you.
I'll start off by saying the Maryland State Police roles across the state vary greatly depending on the location in the state. And here within the Washington metro area, our way to be effective, and one of the 5 objectives of the Maryland State Police, is to partner and support local law enforcement. Commanders meet weekly with Montgomery County on Tuesday on their meetings that they have, and Thursday mornings with PG County, and we listen to them and partner with them. The way that we do that, we currently are partnering with Montgomery County in the Silver Spring area. Chief Dave McBain We stay in contact with him. We partner with them in the holiday DUI task force that usually runs from Thanksgiving through the New Year. We've been in discussions with them. We're probably going to start that up here when Memorial Day starts and run through the summer. We've just had huge success with that. We've already dedicated 321 hours in the Silver Spring area with Montgomery County and have had huge success. Anytime you're proactive, uncovers a lot of stuff, a lot of other criminal activity. As far as the Maryland State Police goes, obviously you see us out doing traffic enforcement. We're trying to reduce fatalities and personal injury accidents out on I-270 and 495, the Capitol Beltway. We identify through data-driven approach hot spots that we like to call them, where we do targeted enforcement. And in those targeted areas, we have seen decreases in personal injury accidents of 33%. In an area on the Beltway near 650, and on 270, a decrease of 11%. PG County, we partner with them. We do a monthly initiative down on Route 210 where they respond to citizen complaints. We get members from our Commercial Vehicle Enforcement Division, and we saturate that area and then have seen huge success and positive response from the community as well. Again, our role as far as responding to criminal incidents is limited within PG and Montgomery County because of our role with the traffic enforcement. But where we have seen an increase is in road rage incidents, where somebody cuts somebody off, and then somebody either displays a gun, waves a gun, sometime a round is fired. In response to that, the Maryland State Police created a highway gun task force to follow up on these cases, and we have had great support from the state's attorney's office in PG and Montgomery County in going after these. Since last July, the Maryland State Police has investigated 123 incidents. Now that's across the state, but an overwhelming majority of those, 44, occurred in PG County and 10 in Montgomery County. Interestingly enough, about 50-50 are people that have a wear and carry permit, that are permitted to have a handgun, and they inappropriately display it or believe that they can do things on their own, and 50% of them are not. And we have seen excellent success partnering with our allied agencies on following up on that. One other thing, a great partnership with our allies is the Car Task Force Rally, where you see late at night on Fridays or Saturdays, these car rallies will try to take over parking lots, shopping centers, and PG County, we're always helping respond with them. And spring of last year, instead of trying to respond to it at a operational approach and just kind of pushing them around and trying to do things, the Maryland State Police partnered with, I know the PG County, I know several of the agencies up here have people on the task force. Maryland State Police created a car task force rally, and actually just 2 days ago they were recognized at our Maryland State Police Awards ceremony for incredible work that they're doing prior to these. They're trying to go after the organizers of them prior to it, and can levy some heavier charges on it if we attack it that way. So again, our role is partnering with, supporting local law enforcement agencies, and communication, sometimes just getting in the room is the best thing to do. That's what the Maryland State Police is here for.
Good evening, everyone. Again, just to share some numbers, the theme that I think is good news for everyone here is that overall, one, we're working in conjunction with one another, and crime overall is down. In Prince George's County, overall crime is down 19%, violent crime is down 27%, and property crime is down 17%. Even better news is thanks to Captain Collins and his team here, violent crime in Division 1 is also significantly down. Overall crime is down 28%. Violent crime is down 25%, and property crime is down 21%. More significantly, homicides are down 71% here, and carjackings are down 71% here, which were a big challenge for us last year, especially with dealing with juveniles in reference to carjackings. Just like Captain Smith said, when it comes to violent crimes, 79% of our murders involve a handgun in some form or fashion. So a lot of our enforcement, a lot of our task forces, a lot of our partnerships center around interceding when it comes to handguns and weapons. And the same can be said when it comes to carjackings and robberies as well, which are also down. I also want to echo what some of my colleagues up here said as well. When it comes to property crime, a lot of our crime centers around cars. Either they're taking something out of your car, taking something off your car, or they're taking that vehicle themselves. So we talk about the partnerships we have up here, but I also want to thank everyone in this room, and please share with the rest of the community here in Tacoma Park our thanks, because I think, and I'm pretty confident in saying that the reductions that we've had are due in part to some of the work that you've helped us with when it comes to our campaigns, that we're trying to make sure that people understand, you know, what looks innocuous to us, a gym bag, a book bag, something that's in the back seat, to our criminal element is something that's very attractive. It just might be your you know, dirty gym socks or dirty shoes that are in there, but to our criminal element, it's an opportunity. And sometimes we, Chief Aziz likes to call it an assist. I know we're coming into the NBA playoffs. We don't want to give an assist to our criminal element where we're making it easy for them to get layups. So when we're leaving things like laptops, we're leaving things like iPads, leaving doors unlocked. Those are just easy opportunities for our criminal element. So again, I want to say thanks to everyone in this room and everyone community for allowing us to have some of these reductions, because again, we do a lot of work with us up at this table and within our agencies and partnering with our federal agencies and everything else to try to make sure we're getting these crime reductions. But without the intelligence and information that you provide us, without some of the safety measures that you take, we wouldn't be able to have these reductions. So thank you.
All right. Well, I'm thankful that just like my colleagues here, I can also report that overall violent crime in the District of Columbia is down. Overall crime is down in the district 8%. That's a 28% reduction in our overall violent crime. We've seen reductions across the board when it comes to homicide, ADW, robbery, and sex abuse in the city. Very proud of our 32% reduction in robbery. We've been working very hard to bring the robberies down in the district. I would say that robbery is the #1 violent crime in the District of Columbia. Most of those do involve a handgun or other weapon, and most involve juveniles, just like everybody else has been dealing with. So we've done some really good work there with our robbery suppression initiatives, our Atlas action teams, leaving areas safer, teams that work every night of the week. They're data driven, looking in specific neighborhoods, combating violent crime where we're seeing it spike, whether that be an acute occurrence or a prolonged area that we want to focus on. As far as our property crime, we're also seeing reductions, but in several categories. Just like everybody up here, we're also seeing increases in our establishment burglaries, commercial burglaries. Motor vehicle thefts is a big one in DC that we're combating at the moment, along with our theft from autos. We do have teams that are out there, detectives specifically assigned to look into those motor vehicle thefts. Our crime analysis folks digging into those, where they stolen, where they recovered. More than half of our vehicles that are stolen in the District of Columbia get recovered in the District of Columbia, but they're also recovered in Prince George's County, Tacoma Park, and Montgomery County as well. So we've got some work to do there. Trends that we're seeing, as I mentioned, the establishment burglaries in the early morning hours. We're seeing forced entry into some of our commercial establishments all across the city, mostly in our northern and western parts of town. Usually involve folks in stolen vehicles, which presents a whole nother set of issues for us. I can speak more to that, I guess, when we get to the challenges. But we're also seeing an increase in our hop-in motor vehicle thefts. We have a big problem with folks in DC, especially when it comes to not to single anybody out, but like the Uber Eats drivers or the folks who go pick up orders at different restaurants downtown. They will frequently leave their cars double parked and running, and that does result in a large number of our motor vehicle thefts. So we've been working with our PIO our social media to get the word out, get messaging out through our community meetings and some of those more public-facing venues to let folks know, hey, lock your car, take your keys with you, don't leave valuables in plain sight to leave them for criminals to take out of your vehicles. Also, the wheel and airbag thefts, they've kind of dropped off for us, but in our north and east parts that butt up against Tacoma Park, PG County, Montgomery County, we are still seeing the rims and wheels stolen off of vehicles. Catalytic converters have slowed way down, but we were seeing a rash of those, as well as the airbag thefts. So property crime involving vehicles is a challenge for us, and that's something that goes across borders. So looking forward to seeing how we can partner in addition to what we've already done to try to combat that and bring those numbers down.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. This next topic is common challenges and operational barriers. Now that we heard some of the current crime patterns, let's talk about real-world challenges that come with addressing them. Every agency here is doing more with less, whether it's limited staffing, increasing calls for service, mental health-related incidents, ICE and immigration, technology gaps, or fentanyl. These operational realities affect how we respond and what we can realistically sustain. So I'd like to open this part of the discussion by asking, what are the biggest pain points you're feeling right now, and where do you see the most opportunity to work together despite those barriers?
Yeah, man, I can start it. I think one of the critical issues facing, I think, everyone on this dais is staffing and the applicant pool that we currently have. We all are trying to get applicants kind of from the same applicant pool. You know, when most of us came on the police department many years ago, you go to a test and there'd be 1,000 people taking a test for 50 positions. You know, we're lucky if we can get 20 people on a weekend to show up. So it's a significant challenge for us, and we're also facing significant retirement. So trying to backfill for the people that are leaving the profession, but also attempting to try to get good quality people. And I think everyone up here would emphasize quality, not quantity. So those are some challenges that we're facing as an agency. And I'm sure across the dais, and I don't know if anyone else wants to touch on the challenges. I know one of you mentioned, I think the representative from DC mentioned that there's 600 officers down. So it creates operational challenges as well as, you know, not having certain staffing. You can't do some of the things we want to do. It also puts stress on our existing staff. So I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on those challenges as far as staffing.
No, I would concur. Staffing is number one issue in Montgomery County. I will be shameless, and we are currently offering a $20,000 hiring bonus. If anyone would like to sign up who is either here or online watching, Chief Frank and Commander Kokinas would gladly put you on a shift tomorrow. I think our numbers were, what, 190 down or so right now. It's, you know, a big problem for us. Our drone is first responder, the real-time information center, our camera program, which I don't want to steal your thunder, Chief Duvall, but I think last week we expanded the camera program into Tacoma Park. There's a $250 rebate, I think up to $250 rebate for anyone that joins that program. But it's things like that. It's partnerships. It's the advancements in technology that are helping us overcome some of these shortages, and what, you know, we're working and trying to be as innovative as possible. So
I will also mention, of course, staffing. Fortunately, we're trending towards a place where hopefully by this summer, if we don't have any major setbacks, at least in Montgomery County Division, I know also in the Prince George's County Division, they're fairly close also to being fully staffed. And of course, all of us could easily put to work another 100 or so more members of our respective agencies, but that is one of the realities. One of the things I think we all have to continue to focus on, and this is where you come in, the equation, is prevention. No one agency here has every resource that they absolutely need, nor can we be everywhere at all times. So to what degree you are actually willing to help as far as eyes and ears, volunteer, and et cetera, you make a difference. In the Park Police, we actually have a volunteer cadre, if you will. I know in Prince George's County, they also have sort of like a cadet type of, or park rangers. down there as well. But these are men and women who give of their time and their eyes and ears, and also just their presence alone helps to prevent certain offenses in different places. One thing I'll also mention as well is, it's kudos to MCP, is leveraging technology. Fortunately, now we live in an age where we can easily share information by technology, but also the utilization of things like drones is also helping us to be that much more effective. And to MCP's credit, the Drone First Responder Program is really showing some really good promise, and we certainly wish the very best. And then also leveraging partnerships with nonprofits, whether it be those who work with the homeless, those who work with the mentally challenged, if you will, to what degree we can continue to support them and they work with the respective agencies. I think we'll also see some benefits there as well. And then, of course, we all share resources as well, especially with major trends, if you will. We will talk with each other. We'll share different staff members with each other to address certain matters that will affect you directly. So stop there.
I think one of the other things we mentioned, and I think it's a consensus up here, is juvenile crime, especially in the state of Maryland, with some recent law changes that have made it very difficult for us to prosecute juveniles for serious crimes. I know we've had some pretty serious incidents by juveniles as young as 9, carjackings and other serious incidents. So that is a challenge for us as well. I'm assuming that other people on the dais are having the same issue. There have been some pretty high-profile crimes that we have not been able to prosecute, and we can't hold people accountable for committing crimes. And I understand the rationale between some of the laws, but I think there's some things within the laws that were created that make it very difficult for us to hold juveniles accountable, and they know that, and that makes it difficult for us to enforce, violators of some pretty serious crimes. So.
And Chief, just to piggyback what you're saying about juvenile crime and some of the challenges that we have, not even holding them accountable, which is also very challenging and one of the biggest problems, but especially with our partners in MPDC, where we have a unique situation where we border Virginia and DC, and when it comes to things like parole and probation, when it comes to things like providing services for juveniles, it's difficult because we'll have a individual that might commit a crime in Prince George's County, but he'll live in DC. So it's very difficult for parole and probation to share information with, and this is outside of what police's purview is, but to share information on that person's criminal history, to share information about what services they need, to even know what crimes they may commit. They could have, 6 robberies here in Prince George's County and only 1 in DC, and that doesn't always show up back and forth. So sometimes working with some of our support agencies and some of our other partners in government, especially when it comes to juveniles, can be very challenging, trying to determine, especially when they have residences that are outside of where they're committing their crimes, which we see happen quite often.
I agree with you on that too. The juvenile question in DC is a very complex issue. It does present a whole host of problems for us when it comes to prosecuting juveniles. And we also get that, kids are kids and there has to be some different rules there. But there are some kids who are also multiple repeat offenders in violent crime. And like you said, kids as young as 9 years old, which is really concerning. So I think DC's made some pretty good strides in the juvenile justice system. I think it's getting a little bit better holding the juveniles accountable. I think we've, through our partnerships with PG County and some of the other agencies, WAVE and our carjacking task force, working with Montgomery County's auto theft to really identify this group of juveniles that's affecting all of our agencies, kind of running around. Like you said, they may live in PG County, commit their crimes in DC, and then run out to Montgomery County. So we're just kind of chasing them around. But I think that we've made some really good progress in building some intel on those juveniles who are part of that group that's committing the crime in DC and the surrounding agencies, as well as progress with our Office of Attorney General in DC when it relates to prosecuting those juveniles that need to be prosecuted to keep the community safe.
And the vast majority of our juvenile population does an outstanding job. I mean, they're great kids, doing the right things and the things that they're supposed to do. It's this small segment of the population that tends to give us the most headaches and, you know, repeat offenders and things that we see. And it's not just going to be a criminal justice solution. We're going to have outside elements to impact, you know, things like social services, things like mentorship, education, to kind of get some of these children out of the wrong path. Chief Aziz and our staff, we go to Cheltenham, which is our juvenile facility, and we speak with the youth and talk to them about some of the things that have gotten them off the wrong path. And it's interesting to hear back from them some of the aspirations that they have. These kids still have dreams that they want to be police officers, they want to be lawyers, they want to be doctors, and they're in there for some of the most violent offenses that we have in our community, from carjackings to robberies to even I don't think there was a murder there at the time, but definitely first degree assault, where they're shooting at people and doing a lot of violent things. But these kids still have dreams and they still have aspirations to do better. And I think that we just have to make sure we're giving giving them the opportunity. And sometimes interacting with the police removes them from that situation where they're constantly, you know, either around the wrong element or not in positive environments. And once we have them out of those situations, that's our opportunity to kind of intercede.
I'll just real quick, just echo, when I go to these meetings with PG in Montgomery County and I listen to the frustrations that they have, the difficulties that they have with juvenile crime. And then the investigators even saying that the parents are screaming for help, and they're like not saying, hey, I need outside help, and the juvenile system is letting them down. But I'll segue into that. As far as the Maryland State Police goes, our staffing is just like everybody else, is always a difficulty. Within the last 2 years, all 23 barracks across the state of Maryland have partnered with boys and girls clubs in the communities to build those bridges and try to contact juveniles while they're young, to give them a positive interaction with law enforcement. And as the Assistant Chief was saying, if they have aspirations of getting into law enforcement, direct them to that path. I was just at the College Park Barrack this morning, and the barrack commander there just made contact. I believe it was the Boys and Girls Club in Laurel, where they're going to start partnering, and they do boxing and football up there. And our barrack recruiter used to box. He was a kind of a semi-professional boxer, so he's actually going to go up there and hold the bag and show them some few moves. So that's one thing that the Maryland State Police is doing across the state, is partnering with the Boys and Girls Club.
If I could, I'll give you one example in terms of juvenile crime and our frustration. And the fact that this is not just a police issue, this is an entire system issue. So DJS, you've heard government partners have to step up, parents, everybody. It's a community thing. We had a 12-year-old. He lived in Washington, D.C. He would routinely come into Montgomery County, and I'm sure other jurisdictions. He committed upwards of, I think, 15 or 20 burglaries at car dealerships where he would then steal a car. We caught him each time. Many of the times. Because of his age, I can't question him, and I can't arrest him. I simply have to turn him back over to mom. His father lived in Baltimore. Between the two of them, they struggle too, trying to figure out how to get this kid the help he needs. He just turned 13, and I think he's still out there committing crimes, maybe not at the rate that he was before, but the system is not set up to where this juvenile is afforded the assistance and the family that they need. And we can't arrest our way out of this situation to correct these things. It's got to be system wide. From the schools to DJS, whether it's Montgomery County trying to work with DJS in the District of Columbia, to all sorts of governmental partners that have to step up and take a role in this.
All right. I was trying to steal some recruiting ideas from you. I saw a ride-on bus go by today with MCPD's ad on it. Oh, okay. Right. All right. Next topic is cross-jurisdictional collaboration. Cross-jurisdictional crime isn't theoretical. It's something we all encounter. Whether it's organized retail theft, auto theft rings, gun violence, or drug trafficking, these cases don't stop at city or county lines. We've had some great examples of teamwork, but we also know there's room to improve how we communicate and deploy our resources collectively. So let me pose this question. How can we strengthen our cross-jurisdictional investigations through better data sharing, more consistent mutual aid agreements, updated MOUs, and meaningful joint training efforts? Where are we aligned, and where do we still need to build bridges?
I can start out again. I think I can't stress enough how much there's intel sharing, investigative sharing, resource sharing from the agencies that are represented here. For example, every agency in Montgomery County utilizes the Montgomery County Police Academy, which is a great resource. And so all of our officers are trained the same. They have the same network. So when they come out on the road, they actually know each other. We've had successful investigations, cross investigations with both Prince George's County and Montgomery County. Last year, we had a rash of food truck burglaries that we worked with Montgomery County. We were able to solve several of their cases and several of ours. Those are examples of day-to-day success stories. If I could see improvement, it involves possibly having a memorandum of understanding with the District of Columbia. All of the people on the dais, other than District of Columbia, have Maryland law enforcement jurisdiction, and in first pursuit, we can chase people across lines. We don't currently have an MOU with with the District of Columbia, and I think that would be helpful. To the best of my knowledge, no one here does. I know that we have approached that as a smaller agency, but I think that would be a plus for us to have that type of understanding. We have a memorandum of understanding with both Park Police, with Montgomery County Police, and it also involves jurisdiction, but it also involves resource sharing. So I think that would be a plus that I would look for if we can actually improve operational responses, because a lot of times things will happen on the border with the District of Columbia. It's something that may happen in the district. It's reported in Maryland. It ends up just regular calls end up for a long response time. We then have to call the district, or vice versa. We have a very serious incident that occurs on the line that we don't have jurisdiction when we get there. 5 minutes after the fact to go into the District of Columbia. So that's one thing. Like I say, I think the success stories are all there. Joint training, we all sponsor training that each other's agencies attend. That is extremely beneficial. It's beneficial because it's, a lot of times we get free training, but it's also networking. It's also seeing the person that you sent an email or crime analyst just sitting in the front row. So instead of just sharing emails, you now know exactly who that person is that you're corresponding with. So that would be my takeaway. My one plus would be, having that MOU with the District of Columbia.
So we in Montgomery County go out of our way to try to build on the partnerships that we have had, that my predecessors have had. I just have been the chief for the last year, but as you heard Captain Smith attest to, he attends our monthly stat meetings where we share crime information. That has led to other simple things. Lieutenant Upol is also there, and Lieutenant Upol was instrumental in guiding me towards a resource that I was unaware of for mental well-being for law enforcement and first responders, which is up in Havre de Grace, Maryland. We've accessed that, and that simple line of communication allowed that to happen. We've had extreme success with Captain Smith's folks coming and helping out, as you heard him say, down in the 3rd District especially, with Commander Kokinos, and then with our DUI task force, which is spread out all throughout the county on our major thoroughfares. We've had success with the District of Columbia with some auto thefts going back and forth, which everybody has to remember. Maybe you don't realize it, but the police have to stop oftentimes at these borders. The criminals do not. So they're always going back and forth. We use the way we collect evidence in our shootings and our non-contact shootings just by collecting evidence. We've seen guns that are starting in Germantown are also coming down to Silver Spring, and we see casings linking that. We see those casings in Silver Spring going over to PG County. We see them down in the District of Columbia, and our evidence people are working hard with our detectives to try to tie those links together and identify suspects, and we've had a lot of success there. We've recently had some success with PG County and Anne Arundel on some ATM thefts. where some arrests were made, and that couldn't have happened with just Montgomery County or just Prince George's County. It was everybody together, all resources, all hands on deck, that led to the arrest and end of a trend that was violent. You have individuals stealing entire ATM machines. That communication piece, the fact that we sit down together at the same tables often, has really helped us build on that. So anything that we can do in sharing resources or technology with any of our partners, we in Montgomery County do that.
I want to echo some of the things that we said. We have several partnerships and successes, but I think that one of the things that in the future that I think is going to improve upon the relationships that we have is several of our agencies opened up real-time intelligence centers or real-time crime centers that allow us to, in the moment, use technology. Again, we're all short-staffed. Prince George's County is about 300 officers down. But using technology and working together to kind of fill in the gaps where we're missing boots on the ground, sharing that information quickly. So if something happens in Prince George's County that goes into Tacoma Park, Montgomery County, or MPDC, we're able to share that information quickly when it comes to lookouts, when it comes to trends that we're seeing. We mentioned the commercial B&Es, and we're starting to see that spike too. And we've been constantly sharing with DC and Montgomery County about some of the intelligence that we're seeing and some of the information. So I think the real-time crime center is going to be something that each of us have and we're able to share quickly. We don't have our drone program as up and going as Montgomery County does. We have some challenges where we have restricted air zones in and around Andrews Air Force Base, and of course being in close proximity to the District of Columbia. But we're working on that too, and I think that those are ways we'll be able to quickly share information, because the criminals are smart. They're moving quickly. They're hopping over lines. They're stealing vehicles, dropping stolen cars that they have, and getting into other ones and going out and committing more crimes. And the sooner we can get that information to each of our agencies, I think it's going to help.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the communication is key, but the relationships are really essential too. And I think that, on a officer to officer, detective to detective, executive to executive basis, we've kind of got a good grasp on that. We've built relationships with our partners in our neighboring agencies. And I think that they do a really good job of sharing information with each other as it relates to crime, and they know who to reach out to at Montgomery County or at PG County or Tacoma Park. I think our folks have built that. I think the real-time crime centers for all of us has really made an impact, especially in the District of Columbia, facilitating that communication and all the technology that we're able to leverage now between the ShotSpotter technology, our Camera Connect program, our Fusus programs, all those things that help us kind of fight crime in more real time and give information out to the officers as quickly as possible, especially from neighboring agencies. It's been really neat to see. We've definitely got some work to do, but I think we're going in the right direction.
One of the things I would just add is really, as each department up here is represented, we're always in transition. People get promoted in and out of positions. So one of the things that I think is important that we continue to share and strengthen information sharing as was previously shared. So I know for Park Police, I mentioned earlier, we routinely host interagency detective information sharing. All right, one of the things that we are big on is our tag readers. We share those informations with Prince George's County. So if a crime does occur, a BOLO occurs, and we have tag information, it is shared instantly, so we can all jointly try to figure out where this vehicle is going, where it's traveled, what crimes that have transpired in the path of travel as well. So just those common things that we have to work through, which is making sure that we are communicating with one another, whether we're in transient, right, for our staff that are moving in and out of positions. Because I know for us, for Park Police, we've had staff move in and out of positions, and we lose those contact informations. All right, so
I'll just touch real quick on with intelligence sharing. The Maryland Coordination Analysis Center, MCAC, everybody here uses that. It's a huge tool for all of us. They maintain all of our tag readers that the Maryland State Police has on vehicles as well as stationary. As you said, it is hugely beneficial If we're trying to solve a crime, trying to figure out where a vehicle was, did it pass this location, etc. Also, I know all my cohorts up here will say that the MCOG, which is the Metropolitan Washington Council of Government, we have, they seem like those meetings come out more often than not. I don't know. Some are virtual, some are in person, but that includes EMS, fire and rescue as well, in both Northern Virginia as well. Prince William County, other counties there in the Northern Virginia area. So that's another information sharing thing that we have out there is great. I'll echo what Chief Imadi said there about mental health. I will touch on mental health, dealing with the public with mental health. All of us know that the Police Accountability Bill of 2021, de-escalation. I'm sure you guys have heard that word, de-escalation. All of our deputies, troopers, officers have to go through de-escalation training to try to talk with somebody who is dealing with a mental health issue and the ever-changing field of less than lethal technology, where we're just trying to get that person some help that might be dealing with a mental health issue. And I know that all of our guys are well trained in that.
All right. With that, we're going to open up the floor to a town hall style meeting. We're inviting your questions tonight so we can address your concerns directly, explain our decisions, and most importantly, we're here to listen. So if you have a question, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, but please wait until one of our officers brings a microphone over to you, as this is being recorded and we want to make sure your question is captured. Otherwise, during the recording, it'll just be a moment of silence before anybody answers. So does anybody have any questions tonight?
Thank you. Hello? I don't think it's on. Oh, there we go. All right, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Omar. I'm here from Crossroads Farmers Market on the edge of Tacoma Park. We serve a lot of PG County. We're right there on the line. We have great partnerships with Montgomery County. Thank you to every single one of you, especially here in Tacoma Park. We have great relationships with the police officers, and we're always trying to find ways to support. So one thing there's a long list of things I really want to talk about, to be honest. One thing I want to talk about, you mentioned, criminals, they know they cross the lines. They know they can, it's easier for them to do what they want to do, right? At our market, we're across the street from PG County, right there where we are. There was times last year where there were folks who weren't kids, they were grown men, suspected gang activity. That's a whole nother thing. But they would do what they're going to do. I call the cops. They cross the street, and they're literally just looking at us. Tacoma Park officers show up. They can't cross the street. I get it. We're just looking at each other. The second the officers leave, they're coming right back our way. And so this is this repeated over and over again for 32 weeks last season, for the most weeks. And every week is kind of like, we're going to see what we can do. We're going to communicate with the other side. We're going to see who the communication person is on the other side. It's the same faces every single time. I'm becoming friends with these people just to make sure that I'm safe, that my staff is safe, that our vendors are safe. Our vendors are getting to know these faces. People are coming up to them saying, hey, give me something to eat. Sorry, I can't this time. Give it to me or I'm going to stab you. That happened with one of my vendors. That happened with one of my vendors last year. And so we're getting ready to open next week. All these things that happened last year on the top of all of our heads. I was out there this week just to make sure the block looks good. And I said hi to some of our folks who are some of our troublemakers. So I don't know necessarily what I'm asking for, but I want to know if these are kind of things that have been talked about. And that's just on top of everything else. I mean, waiting until something happens for police to show up, I get it. Everybody's, low on people, on their staffs. But I'll tell you, when we had outreach at the market where a police officer was setting up a table, there was less going on at the market when that was happening, right? And I get it. It's hard to track that data and say, hey, we prevented X number of crimes because we had an officer there. Data is everything. I get it. But we're seeing it every week. I'm seeing it every week. I fear for myself, I fear for my staff, I fear for our shoppers, I fear for our vendors. I know we're in a unique spot of Tacoma Park, but this is not just in our space. But really it's from Piney Branch up to that New Hampshire Avenue section of University Boulevard. It's like a paradise for criminals. You have folks who live in those apartments telling us they just go to our apartment complexes and they hang out there. When the police show up, they come right back to the Montgomery County side. Show up there, they go right over to this side. And Purple Line, sometimes there's big pieces of equipment left along University Boulevard and Piney Branch of Purple Line. They're literally hanging out in some of those giant tube things, just drinking, scoping out the scene. So it's a number of things. I get it's layered. It's not just a police issue. So I acknowledge that, and I appreciate all the work that all of y'all are doing. But I think there's some realities that when our community around the Crossroads area is being told, oh, stats show that crime is down, the data is showing crime is down, nobody cares to hear that around us because it's happening in our neighborhoods almost daily. We're navigating it almost daily.
Omar, I appreciate
Thank you.
the comments. Like I say, stats are stats, and every crime has a victim, and I understand that. Just because crime is down, if you're a victim of a crime, the perception is reality. Just for some clarification, Tacoma Park officers do have jurisdiction. We can go into Prince George's County. We can go into Montgomery County. Prince George's officers the same. Montgomery County officers the same. So we can talk offline with one of our commanders about an incident if an officer didn't go over into Prince George's County to apprehend someone. I know you've worked extensively with Captain Wazzati on addressing some of those crime concerns. We'd be more than happy to work with you specifically when you reopen to have a deployment strategy so you feel safe. I know we've worked very closely with Javier from the Tacoma Langley Crossroads Development Authority on just crime in particular. In that area, we can look at deploying our camera trailer specifically to the Ann Street Market if that's helpful. But before the meeting ends, if you could just connect with Captain Wazzati, who's up here on the dais, he'll be able to connect you with the resources you need specifically. Because, like I say, a lot of those, you spoke eloquently about how stuff happens. A lot of the same perpetrators of crime in the Crossroads, because there's 3 jurisdictions there. There's Tacoma Park, there's Prince George's County, and there's Montgomery County. They are very astute on traversing back and forth across our jurisdictions for whether it be smash and grabs, whether it be thefts, what have you. I think it's really important and we can connect. We have a captain from Prince George's County. Our captain can connect with the captain from District 1 to come up with some strategies. So when the meeting finishes, please get with Captain Wazzati and the captain from Prince George's County. We can talk about strategies. But I just want to stress to you that absolutely we can deploy some resources. We don't want your vendors to feel unsafe. That's a cornerstone of the Crossroads, and we want you all to feel safe. So.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't want to take up all the time, but I also have a couple other things. There was one case where there was a really bad crime scene left at the market space the night before we showed up, where somebody got stabbed. I don't know if they died or not. It looked like from walking up to the space, it looked like they probably didn't make it. But it was a pool. There was medical gloves. There was all types of stuff. And we're showing up and just finding this. So I don't know how crime scene cleanup works. But that's one thing I just wanted to bring to the attention. I don't know if that's necessarily a question. But a question I do have, our area of Tacoma Park, bordering Langley Park, is a large immigrant community that has, of course, many fears with what's going on in the world right now. I know it's very limited. What I'm going to ask, I kind of know the answer, but I kind of want to hear it. If we have immigration enforcement show up in a worst case scenario to, say, the market space, a public space, or even if they're showing up for somebody specific and we see them being more aggressive than they should be, than they're allowed to be, kind of crossing legal lines, is there anything we could do to call a local police department to help us in that case, or is it pretty much like y'all can't touch that?
I'll touch on it. I'll let other agencies weigh in. We do not participate in civil immigration enforcement. The Tacoma Park Police Department does, and I think that's consistent with other agencies on the dais. That being said, federal immigration authorities have the authority to enforce civil immigration. We normally would not interfere with federal law enforcement agents that are coming in and doing their lawful duties. If there were an occasion where I don't know what the definition of overstepping their boundaries were. There are other mechanisms in place where you can address that behavior. We wouldn't necessarily suggest that you call our police to police the federal police. But I know that there's a lot of angst amongst our undocumented community, and that is causing a lot of mistrust. We already had a large mistrust between our immigrant community, but I can't stress enough that, in the city of Tacoma Park, we are a sanctuary city. We're not concerned about your status. We just want you to feel safe and secure in our city, regardless of whether or not you're documented or undocumented. And I understand just the angst in general of the current climate, but I'll let anybody else weigh in. But I wouldn't encourage us to be called if federal agents were out conducting enforcement to enforce them.
Similar to what Chief had said, when it comes to accountability and professionalism, those agents are supposed to act in accordance, just like we expect our officers to act professional, and they have a job to do, and we understand that, but there are ways that you treat people with respect and dignity. If you see anything that's outside of bounds, again, they have professional compliance within the federal government. They also have internal affairs and things like that. So if you see something that is outside of bounds, or it would be the same course of conduct that you'd have with us, you have the right to film, you have the right to observe, you have the right to report anything that comes your way. So I think that those are probably the best options outside of calling the police. I agree with Chief that we're not going to be able to necessarily interfere unless there's, an absolute egregious crime happening where somebody's getting hurt, or a agent is totally out of bounds where they're a threat to the community. I did want to touch on your previous, I know the Chief addressed it already, but like he said, Captain Collins is here. Well, definitely we do these type of partnerships all the time, especially along the border with DC, Tacoma Park. And like I said, we can't be there every day, but if we're there enough to kind of disrupt some of the criminal activity, we can work in partnership with Tacoma Park. We can put together a small operation where we come out. We're both in the area at the same time, so when they shift, Prince George's County will be there with Tacoma Park to intercede. But I know we'll get details, but I'm sure we're going to want to know kind of what some of the challenges are. Is it violence? Is it homelessness? Is it drug abuse? Is it all the above? But those are things that both our captains will get from you. But we definitely are going to partner and try to give you some assistance there.
And Omar, if I can just touch on the first thing you mentioned was the crime scene. I'm not sure what particular crime scene that was, but normally we would work with the fire department to clean up crime scenes. So if you ever encounter something like that, just contact us and we'll make sure we coordinate with the fire department. Normally crime scenes don't get left that way. That's not the expectation, but if that ever does happen, just contact us and we'll work through the fire department to get it cleaned up.
All right, thank you. I'll share the pictures with you. It's real. But I appreciate the answers, and I look forward to collaborating, because 100% I know it's multi-layer, and together we can address them. So thank you.
Thanks, Omar. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to ask you questions. Not very much was said this evening about either organized gang activity or drug-related crimes, and this is a general question, whether those are two areas in which there has been a significant decrease, and if so, what you attribute it to.
Take that one.
I will say that compared to maybe 5, maybe even 10 years ago, the drug issue here, or gang issue, I should say, first, when it comes to partnerships, et cetera, is much better than it was 10 years ago. We still have gangs in Montgomery County and Prince George's County as well. And unfortunately, some leadership is replaced by others. But I think with the different partnerships that we have, not only with our local police, but also federal partners as well. We have various task forces that work throughout the Washington metropolitan region, and that has made a huge difference in, one, identifying those who are obviously at the head of certain gangs, but also, of course, what we call intervention, if you will, trying to steer youth, if you will, away from the gang life. As you know, we have transitioned as it relates to the name. There used to be school resource officers. Now we call them community engagement officers in Montgomery County. They play a huge part in that preventive process. I think many of you know by now, gang recruitment doesn't start in high school. It starts much less, obviously in middle school and to a degree, maybe even less when it comes to the homes themselves. So we're seeking to be proactive, one, to prevent kids from getting into gangs. And once they do get in, give them an off-ramp. When they do, in fact, get caught, if you will, by agency members up here, State's Attorney's Office works diligently with different programs to either give them, obviously, intervention and or off-ramp, if you will, with third parties and others to assist families as well. And, of course, the most violent ones, again, working with federal partners and state partners as well for severe prosecution, as you've seen probably in the news recently, and that will continue throughout the Washington-Metropolitan region.
Good evening. Thanks for this very informative panel and summit. I have a question from a Ward 3 resident named Randall Marks. And he asks, I believe some of his question has already been answered, which I can relay to him. But to the extent it hasn't been addressed, he asked, please ask why the department is not more aggressive towards obvious repeat crimes. Lots of breaking into autos, lots of crime along New Hampshire Avenue between Eastern and Poplar, and of course, package thefts. So
Yeah,
he
but
seems to be referring to Lower New Hampshire Avenue, adjacent to the district and Prince George's County. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking specifically about crime in the city, our crime analyst runs daily stats on problem areas within the city. We deploy officers based on those particular stats. Obviously, that area of our city is right there at that triangle, which is the District of Columbia and in Prince George's County. That's problematic. We see a lot of our crime. You saw from the earlier the PowerPoint that I showed, 29% of our serious crime occurs along that New Hampshire corridor. But as I said earlier, we don't ignore thefts. We look at trends. We deploy officers to where problem trends are. We are very, very proactive in doing that. We have made some significant arrests related to, strings of people that have been responsible for multiple thefts, not only in the city of Tacoma Park, but also in Prince George's County, as well as DC. So we continue to try to understand trends and make sure that they're not data. To just be data doesn't mean anything. We have to analyze the data, understand trends, time of day. Our crime analyst puts out a regular daily update to us in the city of Tacoma Park for crime specifically here. And I think the captain from Maryland State Police talked about MCAT and that information. That is information from the region that is very beneficial. If there's an incident that occurred in Tacoma Park that has the same MO as something that occurred in Harford County, because a lot of the crime occurs within, the district, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Tacoma Park, but we also have statewide crime rings that occur, a lot of the gypsy rings and so on and so forth. We were able to solve a gypsy theft crime ring because of some information that came from a county outside of the representatives on this dais. So we continue to try to address crime as it occurs and respond to it as it occurs.
And just to some addition to what Chief said, property crimes can be very difficult. That's why they are appealing to our criminal element. Some of the things that we discussed earlier, we have to start working in partnership with our community, and please let Mr. Marks know things like video. I know that was brought up earlier, making sure that you have things like Ring cameras, that you talk to your neighbors. If it's packages that are getting dropped off and you know that you're not going to be home, maybe having it at a drop location or dropping it off with a neighbor, and then making sure that you're talking with each other as well as the police, because what'll happen is it's difficult to sometimes make an arrest on a single theft, but they're out there and they're going to do this multiple times. Once we start putting together that information and some of those leads, we'll be able to start putting together. And then I ask you guys to also be patient with us, because we'll continue to arrest them. But it's very difficult with things like property crime, unless it's an egregious amount of theft that they've committed. they're probably going to be back in your community sometimes the same day, but at least within a couple of days. And once we have those individuals identified, once we work with some of our community police officers and things like that to make some of the areas and targets less appealing to our criminal element. But we also have to be patient. You know, we do our job in the criminal justice system, which is to locate and apprehend these individuals. But we still have to work with attorneys and judges and everything else when it comes to once we make these arrests. Unfortunately, there's going to be instances where we're probably going to have to come back and rearrest them. And we'll continue to do that. But we need your support in making sure that we're getting the evidence to put them away.
Thank you so much. And if there's a takeaway I can bring to Ward 3 residents as the council member, it's just going to be partnering, being preventative, and recognizing that it's not as though when a juvenile offender is caught, it's not as though the rash of crimes is porch piracy, say, is just going to go away. It's going to be a continuing pattern until the culture and total support network can change. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilmember Schlegel, if I could just touch on one thing that Chief Yamada touched on earlier, and thank you to the Montgomery County Police. They expanded their camera rebate program to the city of Tacoma Park. So any resident of Tacoma Park that purchases a camera for their residence can get a $250 rebate. That was expanded to the city of Tacoma Park. We worked with their department to develop a system for that. So I highly encourage anyone that does not have a camera to go out and do that. It is extremely beneficial to have that surveillance. And just while I have it, I just want to recognize some of the council members in the room. We just had our mayor, Talisa Searcy, come in the back, and we have council member Schlegel from Ward 3, and we also have council member Landman from Ward 1. I don't believe that's it. So, yes, go ahead.
Thank you. And with those cameras, the residents often will ask, well, is the data immediately shared with the police? They want to know, like, how some people are worried that they're doing constant surveillance of their neighbors or kids on the street without realizing it.
I believe the way it works, and somebody else might be able to add to this, but if you register with us, we don't automatically have access to you. We would have to, if we saw a crime being committed or see something in your neighborhood, we can see a program because you're registered that you have a camera nearby where this occurred. We would then reach out to you based on that registration. You would then say, I'm good right now, or you would say, yeah, you can look at my camera or access the memory, and then we would do that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, to be clear, we have no real-time viewing of your camera if you registered at that size. I know that's a lot of residents that's thought that we would have some real time to view them taking the groceries, and that doesn't occur.
Chief Yamada, Prince George's County will take some of that rebate money too since you're offering.
I'll see what I can do.
Follow up on what was just happening. My name is Claudine Schweber, and I'm heavily involved with the Emergency Preparedness Committee here. What do you recommend, or is there a place I can get a list of what people can do to minimize some of these things happening, not after they've been caught? So, for example, you gave one sense of the porch pirates. They should find someone else to pick it up or send it somewhere else. In terms of limiting the ability to get your car broken into, please remember, A, lock it. B, don't leave anything on the seat, etc. Is there somewhere I could get a list of some of those items, who I could correspond with? And I will share it with my listserv and share it with others, and try and put it in my column, which I write periodically now for the newspaper. But what I'm interested in is trying to limit the opportunity for some of these things to happen. Now, there's some cases you can't. So people need to know where to report it and everything. But to the extent that there are ways that they can limit that opportunity, it would be really good to know. And then I'd be happy to share, and maybe others as well.
Claudine, you bring up a very important point. So are you registered for our public information officers' normal updates? Because Kathy Plevy, our public information officer here in the city of Tacoma Park, on a regular basis puts out crime tips, anything from porch pirates to so on and so forth. If you go to our website here in Tacoma Park, all of the comprehensive crime tips that we just talked about are on our website. I'm assuming they are as well on all of the other jurisdictions' websites, so that information is also readily available. What you also get if you register for Kathy's updates is real-time crime data. We put out daily crime information here in the city of Tacoma Park. We also put out a weekly update. So I would encourage you to do that. I can also connect you directly with Kathy for information here in the city of Tacoma Park as well.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Wallace. Thank you all for being here tonight. I have several questions, but I'll try to figure out which ones are priority. I've got about 15. Anyway, the first one is regarding Tacoma Park. I'm glad to see that the larcenies have gone down. I do get the weekly announcements. I'm glad you started that. I think it was this year, or was it last year? I'm not sure. And I did notice larceny at Walmart. Now that they have their own security and it's gone down, do any of your other jurisdictions have something like this in place, or could it be recommended? For example, I have I'm not going to go off track. When a business gets a certain amount of larcenies over and over and over again, can it be required by, for example, the Tacoma Park City Council, that they get their own securities into the building? Because I have tried to see what the difference is between how much the residents pay for our city taxes versus the businesses. I haven't succeeded so far. They use a different equation for the property taxes. But if our city police are being used inordinately for business reasons like Walmart, shouldn't they be more responsible? So with fines or with something else, so that they're not taking as much of our resources as possible. And I have no idea how much it costs for you to respond to each and investigate each larceny, and having that information, the metrics of that, would be interesting too, to know whether just because you have a lot, how is it really costing us a lot? So hopefully maybe somebody can answer that.
Well, I can touch on the Walgreens situation. We had a chronic problem there, not just with thefts, but also serious first-degree assaults. All kinds of issues were happening there at the Walgreens. We were responding to 8 to 10 calls for service there on a daily basis. We worked with the mayor, with the city manager, myself, to go all the way up, pretty high up in Walgreens, and provided them statistical data on what we were dealing with there at the Walgreens. They had previously had security, and we didn't have those problems. We were able to show a direct correlation in having security there. Unfortunately, there is no metrics in place that I'm aware of, and other jurisdictions can touch on it, that if you reach a certain threshold, you automatically have to have security. I can tell you candidly, it was taxing heavily on our resources, having to respond there on a continuous basis. So we were able to justify the need through political pressure and through pressure from the police department to have that security in place, and it proved itself the first day. I don't think we've had more than 3 calls for service at that Walgreens since the security has been put in place. But to answer your question about, is there a metrics or something in place that automatically triggers security in a business, I'm not aware of any.
No, I didn't mean that. That's not exactly what I meant. But
so yeah, other jurisdictions can touch on other issues, but I think that the jurisdictions that have heavy crime, in my opinion, should be responsible for their own security.
Okay, I have another question, please. So a lot of you mentioned that there's been a decrease in crime in a lot of your jurisdictions, and I was wondering, has it migrated? Has it gone somewhere else? Has it gone to Baltimore? Has it gone to Richmond? Have their numbers gone up? Or is there a decrease in crime just generally? Do you have any idea?
I think the trend that we've seen is crime's down nationally. I think that we're coming out of some of the mayhem that we had after the pandemic. And I think that we're starting to migrate back towards somewhat what we think would be normalcy. And we're starting to get a lot more support from the system as a whole when it comes to holding people accountable and making sure that they are, staying incarcerated. And then again, I'm not talking about people that commit, one-off, small level thefts and things like that. But we're talking about violent crime and, serious repeat behaviors. But I think the trend that things are down nationally. Fortunately, we all are still having woes when it comes to staffing. But I think we've all seen the trend in the positive direction where we're starting to get more applicants now. And I think that all those things are starting to help. And just to go back to your original question, when it comes to there's no law that we've seen, but when you have ideas like that, please talk to your constituency, especially when it comes to things like retail theft. Nationally, it's been a problem, particularly in the state of Maryland. They just passed a law in Annapolis that I think is going to help us. It doesn't go into effect until October. But if you have $15,000 worth of theft, and it doesn't have to be at a particular establishment, it could be at various locations. If we can prove that you have stolen that amount of money at multiple different locations, we can now charge you with a felony, which will be helpful because, again, our criminal element was smart enough to, if we arrest you at Walgreens or CVS multiple times, and they'll go down to Target for a little while until we arrest you there. And they were able to kind of run up the bill and working with some of our representatives in Annapolis and our state's attorneys. They saw that was a problem, and they saw from the community that was an issue. So that's a law that they passed. So when there's ideas like that are impacting the community, we'll enforce the laws as long as they're on the books. But, sometimes we need your assistance to talk to the politicians to say, hey,
Right.
these are the things that we need, and they can, advocate on your behalf.
Okay, my last question, please, everybody, is regarding the juvenile crime. So is there any correlation between kids using the scooters, which is illegal for them to use when they're under the age of 16, according to Lyft and their rules? They're not allowed to use it, but I see kids in Tacoma Park driving them all the time. It's illegal for them to drive them, but I don't see them being stopped. Is there any correlation between vehicle vandalism and use of those scooters, number one? And number two, regarding juveniles, I've heard TED Talks regarding the amount of brain trauma there is on people in prisons, and whether they got their brain trauma as kids or on a football team or with gangs or in prison, I don't know. But has there been any research done on the kids that you're particularly having difficult with, or something you might want to consider to see if they have brain trauma, so that the fact that you can't correct their behavior, like the kid that you mentioned, the 15-year-old, I think, is maybe because they're injured. And if you're injured in like the frontal lobe of your brain, you can't make those decisions as well as you could if you didn't have a brain trauma. So is there any medical advances that you're trying to look at to try and solve the problem with juvenile crime?
We're fortunately enough to rely on some of the, we have University of Maryland here, we have Johns Hopkins. They're doing studies when it comes to brain activity, brain development, growth all the time. Again, we're cops. We usually wait for the people that have all the fancy degrees and diplomas to do some of that research. But I don't know if it's been specifically towards, impact brain trauma, but definitely there's trauma when it comes to some of these youths and some of the things that they've had in their upbringing that we see is a constant pattern. And you don't necessarily have to be a doctor or have a PhD to see that, some of the homes that we enter and the upbringings that these kids have are definitely contributing to some of the ways that they're behaving.
Yeah, my name is Fred Schultz. I'm curious about the issue that was raised about all these jurisdictions struggling to get their staff numbers up to where they're supposed to be or used to be. And I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about, I mean, is this a national problem? Is this a regional problem? Is there some sort of patterns or something going on in our country I mean, I know that the George Floyd episode and then the subsequent defunding the police kind of thing probably was demoralizing for a certain sector of our society thinking about going into police work. But it would strike me as odd. I just don't understand why this trend might be, why it's so hard to find good people.
I might not be able to shut up on this. I think ultimately it just comes down, we have to find good people that want to serve. And that word serve, it comes down to that. I mean, we all sat before an oral interview board and said, we want to help people. We want to serve. You're not going to change the world, but I don't know if we have to have the youth that look at the profession and look at it as, it sounds kind of cliche, but as a noble profession and really want to serve and treat every person the same and serve their community. I knew that when I'm the dummy that when I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be a Maryland State Trooper. No offense to any of these guys. I started with an allied agency. I started with the Sheriff's Department out in Western Maryland, but I knew I wanted to be a Maryland State Trooper. And we all do the same job. You're listening to it in some sort of way. But hopefully, and we have seen that, I think we've seen the tide turning a little bit, at least with our, we were talking even before. I'll say the Maryland State Police, if we have 2 classes a year and we get 50 people per class, that's what we're shooting for with retirements and resignations and people just leaving. Hey, it's not for us. But I'll give a prime example. He talked about having recruiting where you'd have thousands of people show up. If we were trying, in 2019, we graduated a class of 42 people. And we had over 4,600 people fill out applications for that class. Shortly after the George Floyd incident happened, we were still trying to have classes of 40 to 50. We graduated a class of 29 and we had 1,100 people fill out an application in that same amount of time. And we won't even go into like the quality or the quality of the applicant as well too. I mean, there was times, and I'm sure these guys will say too, when people were knocking down your doors, we didn't have enough positions to fill. We had to turn away good people just to wait for some of the attrition to happen. And that's just not happening now. So hopefully we will see the tide turn. You hit on what I believe all of us would say. George Floyd thing, police accountability bills where people are like, oh, no, not right now. But hopefully it turns.
I'll add to that by saying it's frustrating for all of us. Yes, it's absolutely a national trend. It's not isolated to Montgomery County or the Maryland State Police or PG or DC. It is national. It is a situation that has been created that has caused the only acceptable level of performance for law enforcement is perfection. All the time, every day. Who in this room can live up to that? Who in this room is willing to put on a badge for whatever amount of money each agency is going to pay you and have to be perfect all the time? And if you're not, you're going to get
Monday morning
reprimanded. You're going to get somebody looking at your body worn camera to find the smallest mistake that you have made during a course of a 10-hour shift of duty. Who wants to do that? That's why recruiting is so difficult.
I believe the Baltimore City PD is down over close to 1,000, between 800 and 1,000 officers.
I mean, I think the majority, I've heard several of you say, we want more police. We want to see more police officers. We want to see more enforcement. I've heard all the time at our community events, we want to see more traffic enforcement done. That is also met by the same number or an equally loud portion of our communities that say, I don't want to see anyone. When you say, I want to see the officers at my fruit stand, there are plenty. If I put them there in Montgomery County, I'll get a call, the district commander will get a call and say, why do you have your officers there? I can't send my kids there. We're afraid to go because they're going to have questions about their immigration status or whatever. You know, as much as you want people there, there are others that don't. And that's the balance, that's the struggle we all face.
One thing that I'm curious about, I think back when I was a young man, which was a really long time ago, and every fellow that I knew was worried about the draft and knew that they had to enlist or figure out some way if they didn't want to enlist. And we got rid of the draft, God knows how many years ago, and now we have the so-called volunteer army. And I'm just wondering if, because we don't have men, even doing six months service, what it was back in the 1950s, just to be able to make your commitment, if that wasn't a beautiful source of future police officers that we used to have in the United States. And it just, now I think we need to have the draft back again, but that's my opinion.
Fred, you just went way out on a limb with that one.
Well, I'm not running for office. So not again, anyway.
Good to be a former council member. Yeah, no, I can just speak to that. I can tell you we still see a lot of success from veterans, from military personnel. A lot of our agencies, we have represented 2 officers sitting in the back. Officer Sims, Officer Sims, Officer Manny Guyton, and they're veterans.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're phenomenal officers. So I think every agency on this dais has can speak to that. So.
And then just lastly, when it comes to those trends, I mean, they talked about the obvious things, but I mentioned earlier the pandemic. We're starting to come out of that now, but you know, I've asked my chief multiple times. I haven't had the opportunity to telework in police work. When you have youth that have different options, and it's not just police jobs; it's service jobs across the board, nurses, you know, EMS, firefighters, things like that. You know, when you can jump on TikTok or you can log in with your pajamas on and actually go to work. You know, a lot of the youth looks at that as more appealing than coming to work and working 10 or 12 hours, depending on the agency.
The
So,
job description. Hey, do you want to work swing shifts? And do you want to work weekends and holidays and in 100-degree weather and direct traffic and in a pouring down rain and when it's 0 degrees out and there's 3 foot of snow on the ground? And you get paid, and it's great. Come do it.
Yeah.
And then you get Monday morning quarterback if you're not perfect.
yeah.
There's got to be an inner. I always say it's that inner drive that somebody's got to want to do it.
Elizabeth, did you have a question? Omar again?
Hi again. There you go. All right. I just, on recruitment, I just want to share, you know, I engage a lot with youth here in Tacoma Park. I'm on the PTA of my son's elementary school, Rolling Terrace Elementary School. So I talk a lot to parents. Shout out to Community Engagement Officer Brandon McLeod, who came out to our school and talked to a lot of parents. The parents were asking for that. They were really happy he showed up. It was supposed to be like a 15, 20-minute presentation. It took the whole hour. Because it was a lot of engagement. It was great. You know, so between the school, mentioning the farmers market again, there is a lot of immigrant community. There's always going to be a little bit of that, like, oh, are they here to, you know, enforce immigration? To be honest, I don't hear that as much as I hear we want them here. You know what I mean? I think folks are getting educated, continue to get educated, and I think that takes many of us. But I'm getting more requests to have a presence than not have a presence.
Can you come to the Montgomery County side?
We're on the Montgomery County side. I asked Montgomery County officers to come as well. I've asked PG officers to come as well. You know, and so I think engagement is important. I think that's always been part of the work, right? A lot of the youth, a lot of the community members would love to see more members of the community be on the police force. That's easier said than done, right? I'm curious to know why so many folks don't make it to graduation day, even though you're having thousands sign up, right? I know it's a combination of mental capability, physical ability, combination of things. But definitely, I think there's multiple things that could be addressed with engaging with I don't think we need to wait till middle school. I think elementary school is the place to start engaging with these students. You know, how can you convince them outside of, you know, a big fancy check, right? How big fancy of a check are we talking? It's not, you know, there's other ways to try to sell this to the youth. You know, they want to stay local. They want to find local mentors. They want to support local. So it's just kind of tying the police work with local and how that can have the long-term effects, positive effects of our community. But of course, I don't have the answer. You know, we're all trying to figure this out. But I wanted to share that.
Yeah, Omar, if I can just say, I think familiarity builds comfort. And I think the more, whether or not it's our youth or whether or not it's our businesses see us out and about, and it's just the norm. It's not, what are they doing here? We had some of that when I first got here, when we showed up in our schools. What's going on? Why are you here? So I think the more we interact in a positive way, the more we're going to develop people that want to become police officers. And just as important, I always say, we always want the first interaction a youth has with a police officer to be a positive one. Unfortunately, my first interaction with a police officer was not a positive one. And that is everlasting when the first interaction you have with a police officer is maybe that in a negative situation where they may be having to lock up one of your family members. So the more we can engage our community, engage our youth in positive outreach, the better. We've been fortunate. We have several people that grew up here in the city of Tacoma Park that are now Tacoma Park police officers, including myself. So I think that is, we can say, for example, that, hey, we sat in the same seat that you sat in. We had several of our officers went and on Black History Month and spoke to at several of our elementary schools and could say, yeah, I had the same teacher you have, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I think I can't stress enough the importance of relationship building, especially with our youth, in a positive way. And it goes to what we talked about earlier about youth crime. It's got to be a holistic approach. We're not going to solve the problem. We're not going to wrest our way out of the problem. We have to start with early childhood education. We have to talk about opportunities for recreation. All of the things are going to change the outcomes for youth, start when they're very young. So
There's interactions with the parents too, as he said. Countless times in my 29-year career, you're standing in line at Chick-fil-A and the 4-year-olds or somebody's acting up, and the parent says, if you're not good, he's going to take you to jail. I look at the parent and say, don't tell him that. Don't say that. And then you get down on your knees at their eye level and give them a fist bump or whatever, talk, what's your name? And, listen to mom and dad. That's what we want you to do, is listen to mom and dad. So it's about building those relationships so they are willing to talk to us and want to come to us.
Thank you. I'd like to just say that regarding your comment, just kind of expanding upon what you just said, what we need to remember is that when our kids go to school every day, especially if they're walking to school, they come in contact with the Tacoma Park Police Department representative, which is the crossing guard. Every day. That is the Tacoma Park Police representative that they see every day. And that's the one that they establish a relationship with. And it's a friendly relationship and it's a protective relationship. And those guards are out there every day in the rain and the snow. Believe me, I talk to them and they're freezing their ass off, okay? So they are committed as well. They do not have a car protecting them. They are standing in the middle of the street helping the kids, and a car can hit them at any time. I am on the National Coast Crossing Guard Facebook page because I want to see what's happening to other crossing guards across the nation. And they report people getting hit, people getting killed, etc. There's a higher percentage of crossing guards that are killed, according to a statistic that I found. I can't remember which website it was on. It's higher than police officers. Crossing guards higher than police officers. So we need to give the crossing guards the respect that they are due. It is not always the person driving by in the car that with the tinted windows that you can't even see who's in the car. It's the crossing guard that establishes that good relationship. And whenever you have an event at a school, bring the crossing guards. And some of the crossing guards here have gone into work in the department here and into dispatch. And so they will eventually, and if that continues, that relationship can continue with the kids in different ways too. But I just want to make sure that it's really important that the Tacoma Park Police Department and any police department recognize the crossing guards as an important and the face of your departments.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm glad you brought that up. I can't say enough about our crossing guards. They are our ambassadors as well. They do a phenomenal job, and we greatly appreciate what they do. We are at about 8:48, so we'll take a few more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Council member, go ahead.
Okay, yes. Asking another question on behalf of a resident who seems maybe watching. This resident lives on Sligo Mill Road in our Pinecrest neighborhood, which is right around that triangle we talked about earlier. The resident is asking about whether the district, Prince George's, and Tacoma Park view cross-jurisdictional crime data holistically around that place. Maybe this applies to other areas that are cross-jurisdictional. And then he also noted that he's seen situations where MPD officers have come across the line in various cases, and he wondered exactly how does that work. And he appreciated your point, Chief Duvall, about the value of an MOU with MPD.
Yeah, so I think I can jump in there. When it comes to the stat sharing and kind of like between the agencies, I know that we have a really good relationship with Prince George's County when it comes to sharing crime data across the lines. We actually have some of our analysts that work on, giving our MPD folks that work those bordering districts crime data from the neighboring PG County districts so they can see that. So I think that we definitely share that. Again, I think there's always room for improvement there. I'm not sure that we do that with Montgomery County yet, but that's something that we can improve upon. As far as MPD officers coming into the county, we typically don't, but there could be instances wherein 911 calls are routed and it's maybe a few blocks off, and you would find an officer that would come to whatever the address is in Tacoma Park and realize, hey, this is Tacoma Park. They would typically stay with that person, provide safety for them at that point, and then call the local agency. Outside of things like pursuits and hot pursuit coming across the line. But yes, you would potentially see officers from MPD in the county, but we would call the primary agency to the scene.
Okay, but hot pursuit might come across the line?
Yeah, so if we engage in a pursuit, which is very limited out of DC, if we are, say, chasing a car or something like that, the officers will come into the county and continue that pursuit under certain circumstances. So you could see that as well. But again, we would call the agency, the primary agency there to come assist us.
Thank you. And I don't want to take anybody else's question, but maybe while we're going to another question, I'm wondering whether across all of your jurisdictions, you're seeing any kind of epidemic of drivers crossing double lines and passing vehicles. I've heard a lot of people noting that seems to be one of the most hazardous behaviors that's begun to occur more since the pandemic, in terms of the threats to pedestrians and other people.
Yeah, I think the traffic, especially since the pandemic, we've seen reckless driving just kind of skyrocket. People seem to have lost their minds, for lack of a better word. You're seeing some things that you never used to see before. People driving on shoulders, passing on the shoulder, going the wrong way in traffic, excessive speed. So that's something that DC is addressing through the Mayor's Vision Zero program. We actually just started, maybe 6-7 months ago, a traffic unit specifically dedicated to traffic enforcement in the district to kind of combat some of those issues.
Got a question here in the front.
If I could return for a moment to the MOU question, I gather that attitudes might have changed with the new administration. I wonder if you could address, from the perspective of DC, are there obstacles to entering into an MOU with the other jurisdictions that are not evident to the outside world, such as the fact that you're the federal city, or the attitude of either the Congress, which is with its intensive overview these days of what's going on at the DC local government level and their ability to interfere, or is there anything political that is standing in the way that perhaps, one could address at a political level? Thank you.
Sure. It's in being new to my position, it's something that I've never really considered before or thought about having an MOU with the agencies that we border. I think that it's something that I certainly want to explore. I want to go back and talk to our folks who handle those things and see how we might be able to do something there to be able to handle things on the other side of the border. I will say that everybody knows DC is a unique place. The government works different. The prosecutorial system is different. So I think that there's a lot of challenges there, and that's most likely the reason we don't really cross and expand our jurisdiction into Maryland. But that's certainly something that's an interesting question that I'd love to explore more with our team, our policy team back at MPD.
And I actually have some insight into that because we're fortunate enough. Chief Smith has a great relationship with Chief Aziz, and prior to that, Chief Conti. Some of the challenges that we have, where in Maryland it's very it's easier for us to have MOUs. I'm gonna say it's very easy, but it's much easier. In DC, we have to work with our federal partners, and we would have to go through, I think at the time it's Department of Justice, where they would almost have to deputize Maryland officers to go to DC because it is considered federal territory. So those are the challenges that we have. DC, every time we've spoken to them about it, they are open to it because we always joke when we attend each other's crime meetings and things like that. We give them a fair share of our bad guys, and they give us their fair share of their bad guys. But we would have to work with, and I don't know what the appetite with the new administration is. We're still all just trying to figure out some of the things that are coming out from the new president and his team. But hopefully that's something that they'll be open to, and we can get deputized, and not just for Prince George's County, but I'm sure we have 27 municipalities in Maryland, and several of them border, not in Maryland, in Prince George's County, and several of them do border MPD, and I'm sure that they would all like the opportunity to continue to enforce, over the line, because we all have these challenges, and Virginia as well.
All right, I think we're getting close to time. Fred, did you have a question? Okay. Does anyone else have? We'll get a couple more questions. If no one else has any, we'll wrap it up. Captain Mazzati, it's all yours.
Alrighty. Well, with that, tonight's discussion reinforced what we already knew. None of us can do this alone. Whether it's improving information sharing, building partnerships, or just making the effort to pick up the phone more often, collaboration is key. I want to thank everyone who took the time to be here, from the chiefs and the other public safety leaders and their teams, and the community members who spoke up. And if you look at the screen, if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, but you want an opportunity to ask, or you didn't want to ask it here, you can send a question to our public information officer, Kathy Plevy. Her email's on the screen there. And again, thank you for showing up, engaging in this important dialogue, and being part of the solution. Thank you.